Asha Bandele. Asha Bandele joined the Drug Policy Alliance in April 2005. Few months after the historic implementation of the first reform to New York's draconian Rockefeller drug laws, she directed the advocacy group Drug Policy Program, an initiative that funds organizations dedicated to reforming drug policy through education and activism. In this capacity, she works with and learns from an incredible array of drug policy reformers across the United States. A former Columbia University Repson Fellow who earned her BA at the New School and an MFA at Bennington College. Bandele has spent much of her career documenting issues of social concern through her work as a journalist. She has published a wide range of stories in outlets as diverse as the New York Times, Family Circle, Essence, and Vibe, among others. Bandele is the author of 5 books, including the award-winning memoir, The Prisoner's Wife. Sometimes like being beautiful, her 5th is not only Asha's story, but also the story of thousands of women who struggle daily with little help and much against them. So, I'd like to welcome to the stage, Ms. Asha Bandele.
How you doing? Oh, I see in Brooklyn we know how to make a little more noise. Y'all tired of hearing that? All right. Don't let me have to get Brooklyn funky in here, you know I'm not the distinguished Dr. Bailey. She's my teacher, smarter than me. We thank her for what she brought us, the incredible choir that we had, President Santos Crespo, for bringing me here, the Black History Month Committee, for ensuring I could get here, and Mickey Melendez and Felipe Luciano for talking me off the ledge. They knew I was trying to run for cover, and on top of it all, most of all, my beautiful daughter, Nisa Raj Yasmin, who I drag everywhere I go. Thank you, and thank you to you for having me. I got nervous when Rosemary talked, because she's so brilliant. And Mickey told me it's all right if I just come here and have some round-the-way talk. Well, my mother used to call us a kitchen table talk. So is that all right with you? Yeah. We're gonna have some kitchen table talk. We're gonna let the distinguished among us stay with Rosemary. Let me begin by saying the first time I stood before a group of union members, I was 22 years old. I know I still look 22, that's a little shocking. I was 22 years old. I had just gotten married about a year before, for the first time. I returned to school in full force. I was elected student government president at Hunter College, and no sooner did that happen than the students went on strike, taking over the administration building to protest the tuition increases that would not only block out students who were currently attending students, but students who had been planning to come here. I was president of student government. They said, go out and do something. Get us some support. So I went out to the unions, because it was clear to me, because it was clear to all of us, that the increase in tuitions was an attack on poor Latino people who wanted more than anything to give back to, strengthen, and uphold the families and communities that had loved and given so much to them. And as emerging organizers in that time period, we took guidance from people like the longshoremen who were working in Oakland, California, who didn't let the ships dock, and they docked until the apartheid regime had crumbled. We took guidance from the members of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, former members, who came and talked to us and told us how to do the work of nonviolent resistance. We took guidance and were very much led by the life and wisdom of my former professor, Richie Perez, may he rest, who had been in leadership of the Young Lords Party. Come on, give it up for Richie Perez. That was my teacher. And you know where I get it from? He taught us that when sure open admission. And CUNY in his position was that if everybody couldn't go to school, nobody was going to school. So that sounded right to me. Sound right to me now. And so at 22 years old, armed with a message, and not just a mission, it was like a mandate, right? You couldn't keep me off the mic. You know those people who can never shut up like preaching like that? I was that girl. That was 25 years ago. Between then and now, if you were to read my resume or look at one of those biographies or something like the brother was talking about, it might say Asha Bandele, author of 5 books. It'll tell you that I've interviewed countless people, from Denzel Washington to Winnie Mandela. It'll tell you that I've been in the home that Nelson Mandela came into on February 11th, 1990. It'll tell you that I've written countless articles for the New York Times, Essence, Ebony, Vibe, you name it, I've written for it. It'll tell you that I built a grants program for the Drug Policy Alliance and fund people all across this nation so we can end this dirty, stinking drug war that's doing more harm than any addiction ever did, because it doesn't heal the addiction and the struggles that come with problematic drug use. It only incarcerates black and brown people. It only ends overdose morbidity. It keeps us from getting help to people who are in struggle. We didn't have a drug war, we might have Whitney Houston. We might have Philip Seymour Hoffman. All it did was remove compassion and science from the discourse. So a resume might tell you that I've been paid to perform on 3 continents. And it most certainly would tell you that most importantly of all, I'm the proud mother of a 14-year-old girl, Nisa Yasmin. As true as all that is. True as all that is, it would also be a lie. Give me a minute. Not an out-and-out lie. It would be a lie of omission. Because often what goes unspoken are the places that live in the in-between. That first divorce, babies you lost, second marriage. My husband was incarcerated. I met him while I was teaching at a New York State prison. Fell headlong into the best love I've ever had with a man. You know, I could never say my best love because my child is sitting here, but the best love with a man. No resume will tell you of the multi-year battle we waged to keep him from being deported, a battle we didn't win. And how every dream I had for my life was deported in 2009. Won't tell you how I had to fashion a new life out of emotional ruins, all the while never letting down my game face, because I had a daughter who depended on me, and certainly a public persona that I had to uphold, one that said that I was a strong black woman. So it won't tell you how I put on a mask every day. When I took it off and my real self emerged. The truth was that I was living in a depression that gripped me like a vise. Sometimes I was literally breathless, waking up in the middle of the night, like I am now, struggling for air. That was when I could sleep at all, which wasn't often. So in order to sleep, I drank too much. Started smoking Newports again. Dated a lot of bad men. Never chose a good dude. Couldn't. If there was a bad decision to be made about how to live your life in a healthy and productive way, I made it. I made it. That's what's not on the resume. Because all the while I was doing this other good work on the side. So although I've been working hard to pull myself out of that place for the last 45 years, supported by some wonderful friends, and the best child any mother could ask for, when Mickey told me to come and talk to you, despite 2 decades of me running my mouth and learning how to run my mouth in a union hall much like this one, I went into a full-blown anxiety attack. I couldn't think of what to say until this morning. I typically get up, much to anybody who lives with me, they're chagrined about 3:15. I do my prayer and my meditation. This morning I meditated about you. I centered myself on all you are, Then I thought about that damn snowstorm we had 2 weeks ago. Now when the mayor should have closed the damn school, or at least made an option of, right? And I thought about every crossing guard that stood in those blizzards to ensure safe passage, not just for every child, but for my one child right here. I thought about everybody who worked in the kitchen, who provided sometimes perhaps the only hot meal some of them babies have that day and other days. I thought about every person who ensured that those buildings were clean and safe and well lit. Some of those men pushing a broom may be the only father figure some of them babies have. I thought about you. And so as anxious as I felt, I knew as a mother of a public school child, as a native New Yorker, a Brooklynite, as a human damn being, I owe you a universe of gratitude. I've come to say thank you. I've come to say that you are first responders. In many ways, you are the first line of defense when it comes to securing the lives of our children. You are vital. Even if it rarely is recognized or rewarded. Someone's told me that very thing about motherhood. It was one of the days when I felt especially alone because for all I've been given and all I was grateful for, there was no denying that a whole lot had been taken too. So all I could see was that laundry list of losses. My friend reminded me that I needed to remember that I came from a great and proud tradition of black mothers who made a way out of no way. Some of whom walked 100 miles after slavery ended to find their children. Women who lived their lives being paid poverty wages, but ensured somehow their babies made it to college. Proud church women like the ones in my family who cleaned houses every good day that the good Lord was willing and the creek gave rise. To put food on the table. I wasn't alone, she assured me as I listed out my losses, the parole board, immigration, deportation, marriage, job changes, bills I couldn't pay. But she said I would be alone for real if my ass ain't see I was losing myself. Too much wine and cigarettes and no good men. Come on now. I know I ain't the only one. Come on. And I realized then in my list of losses, I never counted the one biggest loss of all, the one thing that really mattered to me. I realized that if I could get me back, all the other losses could be managed. But I was so used to responding to life. Tell me if you know this feeling. I was so used to responding to life as a woman in service. Amen. As an organizer, a worker, a funder, a mother, a performer. It never occurred to me to take the same constructive care with my own heart as I did with others. Amen. My friend was the first person to say this to me, and that's what I'm saying this to you. She said, I was the first responder in my daughter's life, and that's who you are. And you are that to yourself before anyone else, because what I know for sure is that if we lose the people who stand up for the most vulnerable, if we lose the people who care for the most vulnerable, if we lose our first responders, if we lose you, then we lose black history. We lose black history, we lose hope, and we lose possibility, we lose a livable tomorrow. We can't afford that. We can't afford to lose not any single one of you in this room. Each one of you matters. We need each one of you strong and in peace and being honored for who you are and what you give every day. But in order for that to happen, this is what I finally learned. It took me a minute. Is that it's an inside job. You gotta have to show the world how it's done. They ain't gonna come at it naturally. You're gonna have to show them what you deserve, how you need to be respected and cared for. Audre Lorde, the great lesbian feminist, activist, poet, theorist, novelist, and teacher who was also my first mentor at Hunter College. She would have been 80 years old this week had she not been taken by breast cancer. Once said that taking care of ourselves is not an act of self-indulgence. Let me say that again. Taking care of ourselves is not an act of self-indulgence, because when we see it on the TV and the very rich kind of certain kind of people laying up in the spa, that's what it could look like, not for us. Taking care of ourselves is an act of political warfare in this man's America. Why does she say that? Because if we are emotionally and physically sick, if we're drained of any sense of hope, then we will not have the vision to unify. We will not have the strength to work for a real freedom. We won't get no power. We won't have the ability to make it to the organizing meetings and contribute in meaningful ways. We may talk, but you know how we're going to talk. We're going to talk about each other. We ain't going to talk about the big business of black people. We ain't going to talk about ideas. We're going to talk about people. So rather than live in that space of bitterness and complaint that doesn't allow for brilliance and collaboration, I don't want that. Because this is what happens. Someone spoke about Jay-Z earlier, and I thought, that's what they do. A few will do well, and they will hold them up. They'll say, look, he came from Marcy. Beyonce's mama just did hair. And we will think that the American dream is a real-lived thing for the majority of our people, when in fact 40% of black children wake up in poverty every day. That's the American reality. We may not talk about it. We may not like to talk about it. We may like to think if we play Powerball, we're going to be Jay-Z and Adam Marcy and now we're done and Tribeca next to De Niro. We may like to think that. Real talk is 40% of our children wake up in poverty every day and don't have enough food. So I'm here today not only to thank you, not only to tell you how valued and needed you are, how black history you are. I'm here to ask you to disrupt the pattern that's woven its way through so much of our culture by taking just a little time each morning. Give yourself to yourself before you give yourself to the world. Lay in your bed with your eyes closed. Remember who you are and who you come from. You are brilliant, strong first responders, first lines of defense in support of the most vulnerable among us, our precious babies. You are black history and deserve to be greeted and treated with dignity and respect at home, in street, and at work, and all of us can do that immediately. Walking with that knowing determination about the right and need for human dignity to be a real lived thing for all people, then we can begin to model that for those who still need to learn it. And I promise you this. We won't have the policies or the politicians that create man-made disasters like having the world's largest incarceration rate. That's a man-made disaster. That's a policy decision. That's not an act of personal failure when you have 5% of the world's population and 25% of its prison population. That's a policy decision. You won't have craziness like rents that surpass even the best salaries we have in here. If you're charging $5,000 for a 400 square foot box and say it's normal, say that without acting like you drunk or something like that. We won't have stop and frisk for zero tolerance in school. We won't have our children being killed with impunity, not because they play their music too loud, not because they talk back, not because they wear hoodies, but because they're black and they're male, and those two identifiers still come with a target on it, just as much. Matter of fact, more of a target than during slavery, because slavery they had a job for you. This is happening on our watch, but when we know who we are, when we embrace the richness of who we are, the beauty and power of who we are, we will say,